Welcome again, Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm, SuperTalk TV. Glad to have you along. I want to remind you that tomorrow afternoon, Sports Talk Mississippi will be live at Scruggs Farm, Lawn, and Garden in Saltillo, just across the highway from Barnes Crossing in Tupelo, for the Drive Green Spring Sales Event. Deals on John Deere commercial mowers, 0% for 48 months. And 0% for up to 72 months on all compact tractors. That's Sports Talk Mississippi at Scruggs Farm, Lawn, and Garden in Saltillo. We're glad to be with you starting out a big day here at Sally Kate Winters Family Services in West Point, Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. The C Spire text line is always open, 601-879-4395. C Spire, inspired by you. Hard to follow Joe Max Higgins. That's at least in terms of personality. We're going to do that right now with Colleen Hudson. She's Deputy District Attorney and a board member here at Sally Kate Winters Family Services. And Trina Davidson-Brooks, also an Assistant District Attorney. Colleen, Trina, Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Thanks for stopping by. Colleen, we'll start with you. You've been here before. Obviously, there is incredible work that is happening here, but Sally Kate Winters is not an entity that operates on its own. It's in cooperation with law enforcement, with the district attorney's office. How does everybody work together?
Well, we work together, very well, but starting from the very beginning when the report comes in, either from law enforcement or Child Protective Services, they schedule forensic interviews, and we work together all the way up until the trial. And I just tried a case actually in January. I was thinking about it on my way here, where the forensic interviewer with Sally Kate had said that she had done over 1,000 forensic interviews.
Wow. And
she was just one interviewer, and it's not over a 30-year period or anything like that. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it was just within maybe 5 or 6 years she had done that many. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's such a huge need for people like her, and it just really highlighted how much the children depend on Sally Kate Winters and their services.
And Trina, that's a sobering number. My wife and I were talking last night, and we were just kind of talking about what goes on here, and she made the comment, she's like, there's more of that than we want to realize. There's more of that than we want to think about.
Yes, I agree. Sadly, it is. However, in our district, I think we're blessed to have Sally Kate Winters because they offer services to children or minors who are victims of sexual abuse. And I've always thought or had the opinion that it's easier to rebuild or help restore and build strong children than it is to repair broken men and women. And by saying that, I mean that Sally Kate provides, when they first get the report of a child who's been sexually abused or physically abused, that child becomes a priority. And even after that, they are provided with services, whether it's medical services, counseling, or any other services that Sally Kate Winters provides for them. They get those services immediately. And then the other agencies come in and do the necessary thing that they need to do to collaborate so that that child won't be a victim again and that child can move forward in healing and being restored.
One of the things I've asked some of the people that work here on a daily basis is, how do you deal with this when you go home at night? Because you're dealing with children. You're dealing with children that largely are coming from abusive situations. They're heartbreaking stories. So what about from your perspective, from the district attorney side of things? How do you not take this home with you at night, or do you?
You can't not take it home with you. I have 2 kids. I have a 9-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. And so when I look at them, I can't help but to think about the other kids who are going through things in their lives. And it makes me want to hug on my kids a little bit harder and to be there for them. But in the back of my mind, I know that every day I can get up and know I'm going to do a job that I am able to protect children. And it's not by myself. I have the help of other agencies, including Sally Kate Winters.
Well, that's exceptionally well said. Colleen, you mentioned the forensic interviews a second ago. Walk us through that process, because you as deputy district attorney likely going to be trying a case. I'm assuming there's part of you, it's like, I want to be or I need to be asking these questions. But there's a collaboration that works with the forensic interview who is trained specifically to do that with an understanding of what you need. Is that right?
Right. So we're actually able to sort of sit on site here at Sally Kate, and they have a camera system so we can watch it live. And so the forensic interviewer is able to interview the child, ask age-appropriate questions, and then conduct the interview in a way that's not leading, which helps us later in court, you know, because sadly, in a lot of these cases, what the defense is, well, you can't depend on what the child's saying. You can't rely on that either because they're too young or someone's, you know, quote unquote, put them up to it.
Sure.
So the forensic interview's trained in that. But, you know, other details or things we have to prove, which can be hard for a child as far as like dates that it happened or locations that it happened. While we're watching, you know, here on site, we can sort of have some questions that we anticipate would come up on trial and have the forensic interviewer go back in and ask those in non-leading ways that help develop the case further.
You know, you talked about the approach that the defense takes a lot of times in terms of saying you can't rely on that. How do you walk that line in terms of you want to believe a child, you want to trust a child, but you know that you've got to make sure that what they are telling you is the truth. It's what has actually happened. It's not something that they've created or enhanced with kind of within their own mind. How do you walk that line?
So with that, we rely heavily on the investigators, that being law enforcement,
right,
to go and do investigative work to try to find some corroboration to take the weight off the child's shoulders. Because these types of incidences of abuse are not done out in public where you've got a bunch of witnesses. So a lot of times it is just the child. And so we'll say, you know, look at their school records. Was there a change in behavior? If they said mom was at work, can you pull those employment records and, you know, verify that, you know, this person was alone with that child at this time period? Just something to try to help their voice, you know, be heard and be considered as truthful because we've got something to corroborate it.
Trina, one of the things that I mean, maybe one of the frustrations that people have with the justice system, you've heard that old saying, the wheels of justice move slowly. It takes a while. So in terms of one of these cases, I know they're all unique, but when you take one of these cases from the day a child first comes into Sally Kate Winters needing a safe place, and that process begins until you get a verdict from a judge or a jury, how long is that timeline?
Well, typically from the first day that child makes a complaint up until the conviction date or the date that defendant enters a plea if he decides not to go to trial, I've had a case that went at least 3.5 years. And the reason that is because it's a process, right? Once the child actually discloses something has happened to him or her, then that's when law enforcement gets involved. But there's a process as far as the person developing the evidence. So the investigators have to come on board, as Colin talked about, gathering evidence. They have to do a complete investigation. And we encourage our investigators to do thorough investigations, because if you do thorough investigations, that makes it easier on us to get convictions. And so once they go through the investigative process, it has to be presented to a grand jury. The investigative process may take a few months depending on the type of case you have, what evidence you have, and whether or not there's evidence that's collected that has to be sent to a crime lab. Maybe there's DNA that they recovered from a sexual assault victim that's a minor. Maybe they took their underwear and it had to be sent to the crime lab and they took DNA from the defendant. That takes a few months to get back. And so once it does get back, we're able to present it to a grand jury, and then it gets on our circuit court docket, and usually takes a few months for us to either plea it in a plea bargain or go to trial. And what we usually tell families is to trust the process.
Colin, I'm thinking about the child victim during that time frame in a case that lasts 3.5 years, in a case that lasts 2 years. How do you, and as part of the work that Sally Kate Winters does, the mental well-being of the child as that process moves along, whether it's fast and only takes a year, or it's one that feels like drags on forever?
So Sally Kate is really good about offering mental health services, setting the children up with therapists, different types of therapy. I know they've done referrals for like play therapy that are more child appropriate, but might not be the actual sort of therapy idea that we have in our minds as adults. So they work with them where it's not just waiting for the finality and closure on the criminal side of it. I would almost say that the criminal side isn't the main focus for Sally Kate. It's child focused.
Yeah.
So.
Both of you are doing incredible work. I appreciate you coming and spending some time with us and sharing the story. And we all continue to cheer for and applaud the work that's happening here at Sally Kate Winters.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So good to see you. We've got more of Mornings with Richard Cross on the way. We'll take a quick time out and get back with you right after this. You can join online at supertalk.fm, streaming at SuperTalk TV. Of course, you can always download the show as a podcast as well. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.